Welcome back, everybody, to another edition here of Coach's Corner on the Auburn Undercover podcast. I am Nathan King, as always. Former Auburn defensive coordinator Ellis Johnson is here this week. Auburn is on the its first of 2 bye weeks this season. I feel like it's been a minute since they've had a couple bye weeks in the college football season. The Auburn coaching staff said they prefer to call it an idle week because, as Derek Nix said yesterday, he said the car's still idling. You haven't gone anywhere. You're just not playing a game. And so, I guess just from your perspective, before we get rolling into the Georgia game and other stuff, what are some of the challenges and the benefits that come with your off week? Because from an outside perspective, I feel like that is probably one of the most crucial, several days of the entire season, because you don't otherwise get an opportunity to slow down and evaluate over the course of a long year.
Yeah, I get that question a lot. Everybody wants to know, how are they going to use this open date? How did y'all use your open date? I think, it depends on when it falls and what the condition of your football team is, and a lot of other things go into it, and where you would use it a certain way at one point in the season, you might not use it that way at another point because you get injuries, you get other things that come up. They're always useful though, and it certainly can help a football team if they're used to the benefit. I'm not sure the health of the football team, Auburn, totally right now, so I couldn't comment on that. But they've had a rough stretch. We know that, and obviously the record's not what they feel like it could be. I feel like they've lost to 2 teams that they're better than, and should have won the games, had a chance to put them away, and they've even played some teams that are better than them and played them well enough to have a shot to win the game. Just like this last game. Georgia was just a little bit better. I didn't think Auburn played terrible. Just couldn't make some critical plays at the right time. So I don't know what they'll use it for, but it's always a beneficial thing if you use it right.
Talk a little bit about what you saw from that Georgia game. Auburn has historically, really the better part of the past couple of decades, when they go to Athens, not only do they not win, usually have a tough time even competing. It's just been a cursed place for that program. They competed in this game. I mean, closer than the score indicated, I think. Couple missed opportunities here and there. The 4th and 1 at the start of the fourth quarter kind of just gave way for Georgia to have a short field and put the game away. Just kind of your perspective of a game where, look, we said they didn't need to turn the ball over, and they didn't. They went the entire game without the turnovers, but that didn't mean that they weren't immune from some other self-inflicted mistakes, I think.
Well, you just hit one of the main things. There was not a turnover in the game by either team. So when you look at that, you go back to see where everybody played well in what areas. And the biggest thing that jumps out was third down. And I think Auburn, they're 4 of 13, and Georgia's 7 of 13. So that means ball possession and having more plays, et cetera. So at the end of the game, Georgia had run about 68, 69 plays, and Auburn was in the 50s, I think 58 or something like that. And that's a lot of plays when you're both playing pretty well. They made some good plays on offense, and they have all season long. But you mentioned a while ago, it is critical plays at certain times in the game, and they either hurt themselves or they just can't convert them. And if you look at the play of the 2 quarterbacks, Peyton's really struggled this year and has really been criticized, I think, a lot more than he deserves. But he can't make those 4 or 5 big plays in the game that they've really got to have on a critical third down or a 50-50 ball or something that could really light the fire under the team. And Beck was just a little bit better. And he had a tough outing the week before, and he can't bounce back and played a really, really good football game. So I just feel that was the difference in the game, is the overall play of the 2 quarterbacks. Of course, the surrounding cast has a lot to do with that. And then third downs. They couldn't keep possession of the ball enough to win with that type of philosophy, as you said. If they don't turn it over, they would have a chance. And they did, but they didn't keep possession of the ball.
I mean, Peyton Thorne continues to be, the past couple games, okay and sort of steady. I mean, outside of that one pick 6 against Oklahoma, I think kind of what Auburn fans keep coming back to is sure, the play has been steady enough, but there was another, in this game, very confusing fourth down play. It's 4th and 1. The running, Jarquez Hunter been averaging like 8 yards a carry. Thorne seems to check out of the play, and Free says after the game, he says he absolutely did not do what we called. You see that, kind of exchange on the sideline of Freeze really getting into him. And so, I still think Thorne will be the guy moving forward. Free said as much. But you're at a position right now where the passing game is okay, and seems to almost be getting better, but you just keep being limited. Like you said, a couple plays a game, a few sequences a game that are holding you back from being a consistent offense.
Yep. And flipping back and forth between games, I didn't see that exact fourth short play. And that's a huge thing that you comment on, because if you're not a great player that can make all these dynamic plays at quarterback, then you need to be consistent with managing the football team. And if he checked off a play or checked to a wrong play or whatever did happen on that play, and it's something that coach knows that they went over and they had it in the plan, and you can't get that right, then that's devastating for a football team, because he's just not the player that can come back 2 series later and run 35 yards for a touchdown or hit a 55-yard explosive pass. He's just not getting those plays. I think a lot of his statistics, they're not that ugly, and it does look like, hey, this guy's playing pretty well. But Hughes setting him up with some good throws in the game plan, and a lot of those throws, I'd say a little over half of his throws are almost laterals and parallel passes with these little swing routes and stuff like that. So that's helping the percentages. The ones that he's not giving them are these plays that really can get the ball vertically down the field enough times during a game to take the pressure off the running game and get points on the board.
Yep, and they've had a pretty consistent running game too. Again, it's just been kind of not finishing off drives.
They got some players, Nathan. I mean, they got
sure.
some really talented players that touch the football. Just can't get it to them enough times, in space and downfield where they can be dynamic. Right now, that's just the way it is.
You and I talked about it a little bit last week off the air, but this is a team that's going to have to, if they want to make a bowl game, they got to win out at home. And we'll get to Vanderbilt, but that game won't be easy. Texas A&M looks pretty good, but you got to go steal one. Even on top of that, you got to go steal one from either Kentucky or Missouri. But I guess what is your sort of confidence level about the potential of this team to do that? Obviously, they would have to not turn the ball over in a spot like that, but Missouri looks gettable, I guess. They'll be favored in that game, but they're not perfect. And Kentucky, is not a perfect team either. Just what's it going to take for Auburn coming out of this spot? I think the bye week comes at a crucial time for them, because if they want to go to the postseason, they want to go to a bowl game, they probably have to win at least one of these next 2 games.
No question. I mean, mathematically, it's getting that way. Plus the fact, when you look at some of the other teams on the schedule, they're going to be road dogs, not just underdogs. They're going to be road dogs in several of these games. And already you mentioned, I mean, Vanderbilt, Alabama tried to sleep on Vanderbilt and got beat. And I think that Kentucky's been up and down, Missouri's been up and down, Alabama's shown that they could screw something up. Texas A&M, all of a sudden now, they're looking like they've got the best schedule finishing out of anybody, because they got all their toughies at home. But they get Texas A&M and Auburn, right? So that is a winnable game. There's not a team on there that Auburn couldn't beat on a given day, but they've got to get better in certain areas. And they've had numerous makeable field goals that they've missed. They've gotten stopped on fourth down plays. You just talked about one of them earlier that happened also in the previous game. They got stopped on the 1 yard line. Couldn't get touchdown and turn it over on downs. And those are the things. They're not finishing drives, and it's all kind of different times. Sometimes they miss field goals. Sometimes they turn the ball over on downs. Sometimes they turn the ball over. But the ones that they can get better on, also is converting some third downs that they're leaving on the field. And I think that comes back to Peyton.
When you're in a position like this as a coach and as a staff, the Auburn's coordinators talked about it a little bit yesterday, but just trying to instill the fact that there is improvement going on, even if it's not in the record. You and I have kind of talked about that before. It depends a lot on leadership, depends a lot on what's in the locker room. I guess, what are the difficulties of when you're sitting at a record, either not to your standard or not to expectations, but you've got, you're at midseason, you've got half the season left to play. What are the challenges as a coaching staff of saying, here's what's working well? How can you sort of tap into that for the last 6 games of the year?
Well, the X and O's and the coaching on the field part of it during practice is the easy part, because I mean that's what coaches do 90% of their time. What the difficulty they've got right now is Auburn's not the kind of program that kids come to see if they can hopefully get in a bowl game. They come there thinking they're going to compete at the top level of the SEC, and they may be in the picture for a national championship before they leave that 4 years of playing there. So dealing with that, it's not like dealing with it at another school who is a 500 history. These are not those. These are not those guys. And so now you got to coach them like they are, and that's hard to do. It's obviously harder for a program like Auburn to accept being in the record they are at and possibly missing a bowl game than it is for a team who's not used to doing that. And I think the other thing I think is real critical right now is they've done a good job so far of holding on to that recruiting class, which is going to be one of the best in the country. And it doesn't seem like there's any problems. You don't see little things where kids are going to start taking visits again. So if they can hold on to that, then that lets the fan base know we got control of this situation. We've dropped the ball a couple of games, but we're still building a football team here that's going to have a shot to win the SEC when we get all these guys in here. The other thing that's critical is you better have good leadership in the locker room right now. And I've seen South Carolina came out this morning today. They've already got a linebacker going to get in the portal. He hadn't even been there a year, and he wants to jump back in the portal. He transferred in from somewhere else. When you get that kind of thing going on, sort of like the UNLV guy who wants to transfer out. They're all trying to save that redshirt year and make themselves more marketable in the portal. They're just all types of things that coaches have to deal with now to keep a football team's morale and commitment to the group and commitment to stay and work through things. So on top of all that, now they've got to deal with that. So hopefully they've got great leadership in that locker room. And I'll say this, that's one of the things I think that Peyton Thorne has been. He's been a guy who's put the team first. They talk about him being a good leader, off the field, and a guy that the players, respect. And he hasn't jumped in the portal to get out of Auburn once he got to Auburn. He's stayed, he's fought through it. And maybe he is one of those guys, but they better have good leadership within the team right now, because it's going to get tough.
Yeah, talk about that situation right now and kind of what you make of. I mean, Alabama had a defensive lineman go in the portal yesterday. Again, with that, just preserving the red shirt. That's really not. It's tough to put the toothpaste back in the bottle when it comes to the portal right now, but that's just not something we saw that much before the past few seasons. I mean, Auburn's had it happen a couple years ago as well. I mean, just how much more of a challenge is that when it's sort of getting prevalent to look at a body of work in a season if you're a player and say, well, I've only got X amount of years of eligibility and this one's not going so hot. I'll just go ahead and call it quits, the first week of October.
And that's what the adults in the room, they think they're helping kids when they put all these rules in. And I don't need to get on the soapbox, but it's happening everywhere. And you could have seen it coming. I mean, you cannot have a rule like that and not have what's going on happen. And it sounds kind of Pollyanna or whatever, but you're not helping kids with this either. These kids are learning how to cut and run. And I don't care if it's for money or playing time or get closer to mama and daddy or what it is, unless it's a serious, serious issue, it's not good for the kids. They're just learning how to quit. But besides that, in dealing with it from the coaching standpoint, I guess it's been long enough now that coaches, none of them are getting hit in the back of the head with it. They know it's coming. How you keep a roster together, that's kind of a technical thing. But how you keep a football team together, I think there's too much evidence of it, Nathan, in all sorts of teams that went heavy in the portal. And you're seeing some things happening on the field now. I mean, some of the crap that happened at the end of the Alabama Vanderbilt game. I've seen some things break out with skirmishes that in programs that used to never have that happen. Seen a lot of other things. You got a player from Georgia right now, domestic battery on top of a second one that happened in August. And I don't think these coaches have their team anymore. They can't because they've got 25 and 35 new people coming in every year, more than just a signing class. When you go out and recruit high school kids, you know a lot about those kids and those families when they come in. And sometimes you may be dealing with a tough disciplinary problem or a kid that's going to need a little extra attention because of the distance and this type of things. So their coach has been used to handling that type of stuff for a long time. But what you're doing now, instead of trying to encourage a kid and tell him to hang in there and keep working hard and help him try to reach his potential, now you're trying to keep him from walking out the door. And it's just a totally different element. And I think it's all over college football right now. And like I said, I don't know why anybody wouldn't have seen it coming with the way they've structured this thing and left it just wide open, this Pandora's box that they've opened. And you can't blame the kids because they need the rules, they need the guardrails, and they need a lot more than what's happening to them right now than to give them $10,000 more a week.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, initially the thought was, well, give kids more freedom to transfer. That's the best thing. Normal students can transfer easily. Why can't student athletes transfer? But you're right. It almost, sort of a double-edged sword. It goes against your goals there with the situations.
Well, normal students aren't being paid for their education.
Yep.
They getting leave because they're paying for their own education. I don't think it should be locked down the way it used to be, but I think it should be that the coaching staff turns over, everybody's free to go. After 2 years, everybody can transfer once. And maybe cut it off after that. I don't know, but you could have two or three things that could trigger it to give a young man who's made an honest decision and come in and he's not been mistreated, but things aren't working out the way it looked like they were going to simply because either a coaching change or they signed a player the following class that they said they weren't going to sign, and those type of things occur. Give an opportunity to the young man to change his decision because it's not the same decision he based his choice on. But after that, I mean, I just think it's ridiculous to let him cut and run all the time.
Yeah, I mean, Hugh Freeze has even suggested that before. I think a lot of coaches, a couple years in the program before you can decide to transfer. Because like you said, sometimes decisions, your outlook changes after a couple years.
If you have a head coach change immediately, every kid on the roster has got a freebie. He wants to take it. He wants to leave. It's not who he decided to come play for. It'd be no different if they got left the conference or something. So I think that one, no matter what year it is, I don't care if you've been there 2 weeks. If the coach takes off, kids ought to be open to go anywhere they want to go. And the other thing is, like after that, if the coaching staff's in place, maybe after 2 years or something, open it up.
Ellis, before we get out of here, I wanted to kind of touch on his Auburn's bye week, the rest of the league a little bit. I mean, that Vanderbilt Alabama game, that was, we were sitting under Sanford Stadium, finishing interviews, and I mean, it was almost unbelievable. It's something that you could have just never conceived, the idea of that, and that's why college football is great, because it happens. And I think the part about that game is, Bama made some mistakes, but Vanderbilt went out there and won that game. They made plays in the fourth quarter to win that game. Just goes to show, and it's already been a crazy year in the league so far with expansion and how many teams that I think are kind of neck and neck right now. And I think that just sort of set the tone for the rest of the year, and we don't really know what to expect the rest of the way.
Well, what is it? One undefeated team left?
I think, yeah, just Texas, right?
Texas. And the one who's quietly, I think, in great position is Texas A&M. They lost their opening ball game, but it's non-conference. But it looked like they weren't a good football team. First-year coach, it's going to take him a while. And they've had some wins with a backup quarterback that didn't look too sexy. Now they got their quarterback back, and the balance hit the offense. And if they keep that balance in their offense and the quarterback healthy, defense is playing great. And they got all of their harder opponents or top-ranked opponents coming to the College Station, which is going to be a huge advance, a touchdown right there. Vanderbilt played well. It wasn't a fluke, but Alabama was not ready to play. And I said that last week. You don't lose the lead they had on Georgia. I don't care how good they are. If you've got a really focused, mature football team. And so they're not right now. And they're playing off of talent and playing off of uh, emotion or whatever. And some of the things you saw at the end of the game kind of tell it. And they've had 2 weeks in a row now where something toward the end of a football game has not showed a whole lot of growth and maturity. And I just think they got some issues now. They might have enough talent to overcome that. We'll have to see. The other team is quietly coming back. Now they don't have as easy a track left, but LSU, they get to play about everybody that's in their way. So although they've lost the game too, I think they're undefeated in the conference still, aren't they? And then they've still got some
So.
teams. They get a chance to prove it. Let me put it that way, and they're getting better too.
Yeah, they got LSU this weekend. I mean, this is the weekend everyone was looking forward to on the schedule. Ohio State and Oregon is the main one.
Yep.
A team that continues to surprise me too, Ellis, is Miami. Seems like they're just finding ways to, I mean, I went to bed, to be completely honest, when they were down against Cal. I thought they were just kind of left for dead. They played terrible the week before against Virginia Tech and pulled it out with a call at the end of the game. I mean, they're not perfect. There is something to be said though for a team that just finds a way to win games when they maybe shouldn't.
Well, their quarterback's been phenomenal, but he's had his times. Like the other day, he couldn't get it going until right toward the end. But then he
Yep.
played really well, finishing it out. But in the conference, I think I was Texas, Oklahoma. Can Texas stay undefeated against their rival? They're a better football team in Oklahoma. We know that. I don't think it's going to depend on the defenses. I think they're both good on defense. I think there's so much difference in the quarterback play of those two teams right now. And unless something kind of is not back on target with Ewers coming back and that quarterback switching around, unless that's something that kind of puts a kink in their offense, which I don't think it will. I don't see Oklahoma being able to beat them because I just don't think they can score with them. They're not getting good enough quarterback play on their side of the ball. But the Ole Miss LSU game ought to really be a good one because, like I said, LSU right now, if they can keep going, they haven't lost an SEC game, and they're still very much in the picture to be in the playoffs for the conference. Ole Miss has lost one, and not to a team. They've lost an upset win, and they have got to play it out. And it looked like they kind of regrouped last week against South Carolina. Dangerous football team, but they came in and took care of business from the get-go. So that's going to be a really good one too.
Yeah, something that I started thinking about. You were talking about Texas A&M. We were looking at their schedule earlier this week, and yeah, I mean it's pretty favorable. The fact LSU hasn't lost a game in the league, it's like with the fact the league is bigger now, you're not going to play. You don't have to play everybody, and so the schedules I think are going to matter more so than ever. Like, what if LSU is able to just for a team to make it to Atlanta? Like, it really matters who you play on your schedule. Because if you can avoid some of the people in the top of the league and you go in there with one loss, you may legitimately get a ticket punch to the SC championship game.
Yep. And I think my gut feeling is they're going to have to use that tiebreaker thing, which I read one day and got a headache.
Yeah.
But I don't think there are going to be two teams with the two best records. I think there's going to be more than one team with that second best slot. And it's going to come down to all those points and all that other thing. And I was reading it, like I said, I don't know, they have to bring in an accountant to figure out who's going. And that's going to start another thing. But who knows? I liked it back when they had divisions, but I just don't see how you can do it with this many teams. So,
Yep.
there's still legitimately 6 teams that can easily, not easily, it's not going to be easy for anybody, but there's 6 teams who could legitimately still get those top 2 spots.
And I mean, there's been stories everywhere. How about Arkansas? I mean, Sam Pittman was left for dead, and your boy Travis Williams has, I mean,
Yep.
a master class for his defense on Saturday.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the key of the game. I thought it was going to be Arkansas being able to somehow break the code on Tennessee's defense. And I thought Tennessee's defense was going to be the difference in the game. But Travis said their defense had them completely just kind of snuffed up 3 quarters, and then the offense came alive and finished off the game for them. But that was a huge win. But it's just, we didn't think Tennessee would get beat. We didn't think Alabama would get beat. We didn't think Ole Miss would lose their previous game. There's some surprises there, and there's too many teams. I mean, you can't sleep on Vanderbilt, obviously. So every week, the Vanderbilt Kentucky game could be a heck of a football game.
Yep.
I don't think either one of them are going to get in position to be one of those 2 playoff teams, but that's why nobody's probably watching that game. But that's 2 football teams that play about as good as anybody right now.
Yep. Yeah, and for Auburn, I mean, there's usually no cakewalks in the SEC, but that's definitely. I mean, like you said, I think they can beat pretty much everybody. I would give them a very steep chance to do that on the road against Alabama, but pretty much everybody else. But at the same time, all those teams are looking at you right now saying they can beat you. So I mean, it's going to be tough for them coming out of this bye week.
Absolutely.
Moving in the second half. So I think we'll go ahead and call it there. Ellis, thank you so much for joining us as usual. Thank you guys for listening to Coach's Corner, and we will talk to you all